Welcome in, everybody, to another great episode of The Rundown here on News Radio WBRN. Brandon Word, Jack Heckman, giving you the good stuff here in CSAA softball and baseball. Jack, we've turned the corner. We're in the second half of the season now, officially here this week. A lot of teams in tournament action this weekend. Very exciting matchups for many area teams on both sides of the diamond. But first and foremost, I mean, some of these races that we highlighted last week as far as the standings go for white and red divisions respectively, for baseball and softball, I mean, it's getting really tight. This is going to be a pretty exciting finish to the year, I got a feeling.
Most definitely. We've seen some of those teams in recent history sit at the 4 or 5 spot, able to jump all the way up to 2 or even 1. So it's a really exciting week.
Very exciting week indeed. We got a great episode for you here. We'll highlight some scores from this past week, some notable things and analysis from those games, as well as we'll highlight some key games to come. And of course, we'll get you our games of the week later on in the episode. If you also are watching us right now on YouTube, we say hello formally to you. You can find all the timestamps for each and every segment here on YouTube. You can find it on that timeline of duration for the video, and you can skip forward. If you don't like listening to us for 20 minutes, hey, we get it. You want the good stuff, we'll get you the good stuff. But if you're listening to us here on the radio waves, which you always can, 3:30 p.m. every Saturday on 107.7 FM, you're stuck with us. Sorry, out of luck. But you can find the episodes, WBRN.com, after in post-production, so you can catch the show wherever you go, whenever you can listen in. Before we get into the games to recap, big thanks to our sponsor, Eagle Village. If you want a job that impacts you outside of the job description for a place that is loving and caring, so many different jobs for you, part-time and full-time seasonal positions available. Find out more, eaglevillage.org, Eagle Village, where potential soars. All right, Jack, let's get right into it here. We'll start with CSAA-Red baseball as tradition goes. Overall, some key games from this past week. Big Rapids had a couple key tests, including going to Byron Center, a team that's state ranked, competed well. Ultimately, the Bulldogs get both games against the Cardinals, but Big Rapids bounces back in a big way against Newaygo, gets the first 2 in the week. They'll be playing probably as you're listening to this as of yesterday. We might have those scores reported to you. If you don't see them on your screen, go to WBRN.com. On the right-hand side column, we have the scores for you here, as well as a link to more of the rundown information. Also, Reed City against Grant. The Tigers keep it rolling. Their offense continues to do the job that they need to get W's in the column, as well as we see Chippewa Hills and Tri-County splitting a pair. Notably, the Vikings with a key performance to get that split against the Warriors.
Yeah, going back to Big Rapids, you definitely got tested outside. You played Byron Center, you mentioned a state-ranked team, 17th in the state. But then you got it done in conference play, a sweep of Reed City you completed last Wednesday, and then you're up 2-0 on Newaygo right now. Those are 2 big games. You played dominant. You played very dominant in conference play. You were tested outside of conference play, which is something that, if this team wants to go win a district and go far, that's something you're going to have to test. I mean, it's May. You're in the month of playoffs almost. And, they've had to call up some guys to get some innings from the JV team, but they've got it done, It's a team we saw some injuries at the beginning of the season, but they're definitely bouncing back. And there's a big test coming up in conference play, and that one's with Grant. Grant got the win over Chip Hills. It was a gritty walk-off win, but they handled business. They handled the business in front of them. Same thing when they got the 2 wins over Reed City, going 3-0 in the last 7 days. But this is a team, they just handled business. They're not looking too far in front of them. They're looking for a share of the conference title. They can still win it outright, but it's going to take some help. Next week, they'd have to sweep Big Rapids if Big Rapids were to win tonight. It'd take a sweep next week. That'd be able to get to a share. But it's going to be tough for this Grant team to go out there and compete with that Big Rapids team. We've seen a team like Grant. They haven't been able to get the sweep all season long of a conference opponent. Big Rapids, 12-0 or 11-0 in conference play, I should say. That's a team that they've just got the job done in 3 games, and it's so hard to win 3 games. But Big Rapids has showed why they've been able to do it. Zach hurt again. Don't know when his timetable to come back is, but that's going to be a huge loss for the Cardinals, something to pay attention to in the next coming weeks.
Absolutely. Chip Hills obviously is a team that's been up and down this year, have shown that they can play with some of those top teams, especially with some of those bats. Humphrey especially is the guy that leads that team. And Tri-County as well. You got Veltman, he's a very fine athlete. We've seen it on the stat sheet, both sides as well. We'll see if he can carry over as well for the CSAA-Red coming up. And Grant and Big Rapids, as you mentioned, going to be a key matchup to watch here coming up. We'll get to the games of the week to watch out for later on in the episode. Let's flip over to the White Division now. This has been a very interesting division overall this year, Jack. I mean, you basically can flip a coin, and that's how it's going to go each and every doubleheader. We're seeing splits left and right. We see Morley Stanwood and Lakeview split a pair. We see White Cloud and Kent City split a pair. And right now, where the standings are, I mean, Central Montcalm, they took care of business against Beal. They've taken care of business with the bats to complement dominant pitching on the mound. I mean, they've taken this race and they have ran with it. But outside of that, I mean, we talked about Molly Stanwood, right? Especially how good that team has shown they can be offensively, right? The consistency's been the issue. But now they're down to fifth. Just like that in the span of 2 weeks because of all of these splits where you got the Eagles that have been able to put some big offensive performances together. We've seen Lakeview be able to complement the bats with some good defensive performances. And then Kent City's played some good fundamental baseball this year. Just need to play a lot more games and get more flow into which they have after that slow start of the year. So, I mean, this race, I mean, we could be talking about number 5 at number 2, number 4 at number 3, and everything in between by the time it's all said and done.
Yeah, most definitely. But I'm going to start from the top. Central Montcalm, Beale City, huge doubleheader sweep. Lingman, Bracy, amazing pitching. That's something that's happened all season long. Lingman, we know how good he is, the dominant pitcher. He's overpowering you with his speed. He's got the drop on the curveball. He's got the speed right there that he could go as far as this team will take him. And it's Central Montcalm having Bracy pitch well as well. When it gets to district play and you're playing that doubleheader on a Saturday, you don't have to worry about, oh, who's our second pitcher? Central Montcalm, that's not even in their worries. That's back their mind. They know they have two dominant pitching. And they got it done. White Cloud, they beat up on a struggling White Cloud team. White Cloud, tough week overall, but that they took a quality game against Kent City on Monday. That's two exciting games they're coming up on tonight. Morley Stanwood, a very similar week to White Cloud, got a quality conference win over Lakeview. It's teams that got to separate themselves. That 2 through 5, someone's got to separate themselves, put themselves in a sure spot, second place. Right now, second place, Kent City. Kent City, that's a team that struggled a little bit at the beginning of the season, but we just saw it. They stacked 2 wins. They had 2 wins going into this next last week. Now they're at 4 in second place. Morley Stanwood dropped all the way down on a team that only won one conference game, and that's one game that puts you at second place and puts you at fifth place. Those games that you may just think it's just another Monday doubleheader in the CSAA-White, it might be where you line up for the rest of the season. That's how tight-wit this race is. And Lakeview's a team that sits in third place. They're just behind Kent City. They were able to split with Kent City last Wednesday, but they just split with Morley Stanwood Monday. Like you said, flip a coin, heads, tails called in the air, and that's who wins that game.
Certainly is indeed, and it's going to be a wild race to follow throughout the rest of the season. Let's flip on over to softball before we get into games of the week. Let's look at the Red Division first. Overall, Reed City playing some tough teams, right? Tawas followed up by the top seed in the conference, the Grant Tigers. They lose those 4 games. Showed some competitive nature, though. That has been a positive sign for Coach Steig's team. Very younger team, different than what we saw and it kind of expected earlier on this year. Newaygo handles Big Rapids, especially behind a dominant 20-run performance there in one of those games in the doubleheader. And then Chip Hills has been very impressive with the bats recently. They really seem to have the talent and potential to play offensively with some of these top teams. We saw them earlier on this season with Grant, and they took them to the wire in what was a 48-run slugfest, I believe, not too long ago. So they're really proving themselves as a team that could just kind of squeak up the ladder. We've talked about them a little bit, but overall, I think Grant has gotten a lot of attention, rightfully so. But Newaygo might be a team as well that we gotta maybe look a little bit more closely on to see if Grant slips up at all. Newaygo is chomping at the bit, ready to take that top spot.
Most definitely. Newaygo, 2 very good wins against Big Rapids last week. They got the 5, or this week, I should say, Monday, the 3-run win, and then they went up and won by 11. That's a team that's putting up runs. They're playing very well. You struggled versus Grant last week, and that was a chance to get at first place in the conference. And I mentioned it last week, Big Rapids had a chance to be second place in the conference, but it's hard to sweep a team. And when you play as good as Newaygo's been playing the last couple weeks, and a huge surprise for Grant and Newaygo this season. Top of the table, dominating teams. Grant 16 wins on the season already. That's a team that's playing really well. Grant's able to get tested this weekend. They didn't win a game on Saturday, but they played DeWitt, Mount Pleasant, Elk Rapids. Those are all big schools, big teams, hard teams to beat. and then you go and you sweep your conference. Very similar to week Big Rapids and baseball had, where they went out, they got tested by West and they got tested by Byron Center. Grant's able to win those conference games, and there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to continuing winning. You've already played your 4 games against Newaygo on the conference slate. If you keep going ahead, you still have Chip Hills next week, but it's Grant has a chance to fire and go. I mean, it's a race to the end. It's a marathon and not a sprint. And right now, we're almost to that home stretch in the next couple of weeks. Like Grant's really settling in and realizing these teams are starting to realize their identities, and Grant's really found their identity going forward. And they're just a team that's playing really well right now. Flipping over to Newaygo, that's a team that lost 2 key conference matchups. They needed those 2 games to keep pace with Grant, like I said, but there's still a chance for a conference championship. They got a couple games coming up. You don't play Grant, which is tough to make up some games when you don't play the team in first place, but they just dominated Big Raps in those 2 games, outscoring them by 14 runs combined. Reed City softball struggling, 15-game losing streak. If you add that with their baseball losing streak, it's 22 games. Sorry to mention it, Brandon, but it is 22 straight games combined in baseball and softball. Not going their way this season. Struggling. Same thing with Tri-County. That's a team that didn't win a game last year, yet to win a game. But there's 50% of their roster is freshmen, 7 of 14 on their team. But it's been a team that there's a bright future to look ahead to in the next couple years. But right now you're just trying to really that first win can be so huge for a program. We've seen teams, whether on any level of sports, you go from the professional level to the college level, all the way down to the high school level, just putting teams, getting those couple wins in your first couple seasons is huge. You go on, who knows what can happen? I mean, you still got a lot of season left to get those couple wins, but Tri-County, they're struggling, but it's not a team that I would be that worried about. It's you didn't win a game last year, but 1 game can change everything for a team.
Just need some momentum indeed. And the swings that schools can see based off of obviously the athlete pool that they have, right? We saw, right, Reed City, especially Big Rapids last year, plethora of athletes. Now it's kind of shifted over. Grant Newaygo, they kind of had their struggles with a younger team, and now they're kind of in that driver's seat. Now Reed City and Big Rapids looking the same way. And Chip Hills and Tri-County have had their ups and downs. It's what makes sports so great is you can go from one year to the next, and every team has the same chance when you start the season each and every year. It's a very exciting thing. Let's move over to the white division for softball before we get into games of the week. Overall, Central Montcalm test against Vesterberg, and not too far regional rivalry there. So they split a pair. Morley Stanwood and Lakeview duke it out, but Morley Stanwood's offense is proving exactly what we've known all year. And they have pretty much corked back. I mean, they have a good offense overall this year. I'm just kidding. I had to make a torpedo bad joke. And then White Cloud struggling a little bit against Kent City. Eagles get a pair there in that doubleheader. And I think Kent City is a team, especially Jack. We might have highlighted them a little bit overall here. White Cloud, we've known they've had that kind of uphill battle last couple years in sports altogether with that athlete pool, as we kind of mentioned. But Kent City is a team that's really started to show, man, if they can put some of these numbers down in these tougher competitive games against some of these opponents later in the year, look out. Postseason, one to watch.
Yeah, most definitely. You went from, I believe it was 4th place or something like that last week in the conference standings. You're sitting in 2nd place. This is a team that's, you go 4-0 in a week, and we saw it with a couple other teams. 4-0 in a week puts you from 4th, 3rd place to 2nd, 1st place. These are the type of weeks you look back on your season, you're like, wow, we really went out, doubleheader sweep versus Lakeview, doubleheader sweep versus White Cloud. Those are games where you're going to highlight going into playoffs. Where did our season turn around? And if Kent City goes on some sort of run, this is the exact week. You're going to look at the first week in May. The first week is huge in May, especially when you have a tougher schedule towards the end. And it's almost playoff time. Kent City, like you said, is most definitely a team to watch, another team to watch. Morley Stanwood got the sweep over a former conference pro in Tri-County, split with Central Montcalm, lost to Pine River, won the non-conference game versus Lakeview, and then swept Lakeview on Monday. That's a team that's playing really well, and that's a team how we kind of expect them to play, seeing that first month. But they've set themselves up to go even farther than they did last year. But they're outwitting teams right now, and they're playing extremely well. Pitching well, hitting well, you name it. This is a team that's done really, really, really well. Morley State was a team to watch all season.
For sure, the Mohawks red hot right now, and certainly one team to watch. Before we get into our games of the week, big thanks to Denny's Muffler and Brakes there on State Street, just south, I should say, of the north end of town, but also on the north side of Maple Street. You can find them right down State Street. For basic auto repair, muffler and brake repair, especially, as well as a plethora of other services. You can call the number on your screen, or you can find them as well on your Google search engine, Safari, whatever, and you can find that phone number and give them a ring and get your vehicle taken care of today. Let's look at CSAA baseball scores. White and red kind of combined into one. Just four of the many notable games, obviously, this week. Chip Hills and Kent City. Should be a very competitive affair. Might be a split out of that one if I had my Nostradamus hat on. Montague is a tough team in non-conference for Grant. That's going to be a really good test for them. Tri-County and Reed City. It's going to be a very anticipated game, knowing both these teams, battling not to be at the bottom. That's really what the motivation is. So that's going to be a very competitive game if I were to predict that. And then Moy Stanwood and White Cloud. That's going to be a very crucial game. We talked about the CSAA-White. A lot of splits this year. Some of these teams, if they want to move up and they want to contend, and they want to make some noise, they got to take two, not just one.
Right, most definitely. Going back to the CSAA-Red, Big Rapids plays five tough teams. The Tom Ryan Invitational on Saturday, that's always a tough team. You're guaranteed to play Rockford in that one. That's where your first game is. Rockford is a great, great ball club. We know how big of a school they are. Talking about the athlete pool, we know they have an athlete pool, but Newaygo, you got to finish business there. You have two against Grant. And then you'll have the next one on Wednesday. We'll talk about next week. But those are five tough games, and every single one of those games is a game of the week worthy. All of those teams are tough. Grant, they got the one against Reed City, and you have Orchard View and Spring Lake. Those are two questionable teams. Who knows which way it's going to go? But that's an 11-6 team, 8-3 in conference play. That really, they're a team. They put themselves up there at the top and a chance to go for it all. But I'm just looking at the standings right now. Big Rapids 1-9 out of the conference, 11-0 in the conference. That goes to show how tough of a out of conference schedule they're playing. We saw four games last week where they lost every single one of them. But those were teams those are games where you probably play in teams that are definitely better than you. And if you're able to sneak one there, you can really put yourself and project yourself in playoffs, knowing how far of a team you can go. But there's definitely some interesting conference and out of conference matchups coming up on Saturday. Chip Hills, Kent City. That's an interesting one. Kent City trying to build something down there in baseball. And then Newaygo Sparta on Saturday. That's one to highlight. That's a Sparta team earlier in the year that played a couple teams in the CSA that were able to get some wins. But the top of the table teams, Big Rapids, Grant, those are teams who have a couple big, important next coming matchups.
Absolutely. Those four just out of a pool of so many big games, and we have all those for you on WBRN.com, as we mentioned earlier on in the episode. CSA softball games to watch, just as we mentioned, four of the notable ones. And I kind of refrained when we put this list together from putting tournament because there's just a variation of different matchups that could happen. We want to predict that some happen, but obviously you got to win one to play the other. But Morley Stanwood going to be playing at Fremont. That'll be a very interesting matchup. Former conference foes will duke it out. Newaygo and Sparta, as you mentioned, on the baseball side. On the softball side as well, very interesting matchup there. Grant at Big Rapids, right? The traveling on the road for Grant. They haven't had the same offense over the last couple games. We'll see if Big Rapids can capitalize on that. And then Central Malcolm at Kent City. Going to be definitely a matchup right now that appears to be battling for that number 2 spot there in the White Division.
Definitely. We saw Big Rapids last week, who was a team that could have been playing for second place, and now they're in fourth place right now. And you have a team like Chip Hills who jumped them, who's going to be playing Newaygo next week. That's a huge 2-3 matchup that could flip the entire script for both those teams. Chip Hills, a surprising team this year, getting some wins early on in the season. You're a team that sits 13-9 right now. You're building on for that next season and able to keep going with those teams. You're keeping pace, keeping going. Chip Hills, Newaygo, that's one that I would keep an eye out on.
Absolutely. Really quick before we finish out the end of the episode with our games of the week, big thanks to Dazos Digital. Get your digital assets in front of your target audience with the experts at DazosDigital.com. You can find out more information at the website provided, DazosDigital.com. Games of the week, Jack, you have the honors as always. One game apiece for all of our fans. If there's one game to go to in CSA softball and baseball, what are your two picks and why?
Well, I thought about the baseball side that we talked about the tournament that is Big Rapids. Their one guaranteed matchup is Rockford. I thought about it. I went back and forth between Big Rapids and Grant. I think I'm going to go with Big Rapids and Rockford. Big Rapids and Grant. It's going to be tough. I think Big Rapids is able to take one of those first games, and it's just going to put Grant out of the play for the conference championship. So that's why I'm going with Big Rapids, Rockford. Those are two teams, Big Rapids, playing better, playing, getting going, getting back to that healthy team. And Rockford's a big school. Rockford's a team that's really putting out wins right now. Their MPR is 0.562. That's really good for a team like Rockford. That's honestly pretty average for how big of a school they are. But that's a great baseball school. You talk about big baseball schools. You talk about Rockford. There's some teams in Detroit you talk about Byron Center in the Grand Rapids area. Those are teams, and you go up north, you talk about the Traverse City schools. Big Rapids playing Byron Center, Rockford, Traverse City Central, Traverse City West. They're going on a gauntlet out of conference, and this is definitely one to watch. And then on the softball side, I'm going to go with Chip Hills Newaygo. I talked about it a little bit earlier, but that's one that you're playing for second and third place right there. And if you can flip the script, I don't know the numbers on it, but I don't think Chip Hills can still win the conference the way Grant's been playing. I think Grant's 11-1 or somewhere around there. But yeah, Chip Hills next Monday. That's a huge one. Chip Hills, if you can get the second place the way you played last year, you're flipping the script for a team like that, and you're just building momentum on seasons going forward. Getting last year maybe a rebuilding year. This is a team where you took the jump and you're playing for something going into May and going into June.
Absolutely. On my end, I will start with baseball. I'm going to go a little bit down M37 for my selection. I'm going to be going down to Grant. Well, not personally going down to Grant, but the selection that I'll be picking is Grant hosting Montague, the Battle of the Cats, right? Obviously, not conference foes, that teams that know each other very well. And both teams have shown that they can hit the baseball. It's going to be very exciting to see what kind of defense, and especially on the other side, right, for Grant, right? How do they do pitching wise, right? Looking at guys like Rory Fish on the mound, how is he going to handle that Wildcat lineup, and how does Montague do defensively against Grant? That's going to be a very interesting matchup. I think that one could turn out to be a really good one. And then on the other side with the softball selection, this one was a tough one for me. There's a lot of tournament games that are going to be very good, and a lot of projection of games that we'll see in like championships for all these hosting teams in the tournaments. You mentioned McGrath, Grant also as well. I think I'm going to go with another set game, and I think this time I'm going to go with Central Montcalm and Kent City. Look, Kent City is a team that it looks to be red hot right now. Central Montcalm is notorious for this, and I know this as a former player in this conference. They are notorious with going into a opposing place and really wrecking things up for that other team when they're on a hot streak. They are very notorious of that. They could play good fundamental ball, whether it's softball or baseball. So you got a hot team against a fundamentally and notoriously dangerous team on the road. I think that'll be a very interesting matchup. We'll see if the Eagles can roll with that momentum right now, and then see if Central Montcalm has anything to spoil it in store. But that's going to do it for our edition of The Rundown. Big thanks to you guys. Make sure to subscribe if you're watching us here on Big Rapids Daily News on YouTube. Be sure to get that preset dialed for 1077 FM every Saturday, as well as at WBRN.com, the WBRN mobile app. We'll have some continued guests back on the show. I know we've had a little bit of an absence, but coaches are getting ramped up. They got to host their tournaments this week, so we're going to leave them alone this week. But got some great guests in store here, Jack, and can't wait to talk to him here next week.
Yeah, most definitely. Exciting matchups this week. Exciting coaching matchups, too. Can't forget about them. But it should be an exciting week coming up.
Might have to do a coach's power rankings here on the show. Man, it might be a little bit too touchy. We'll have to wait and see. But thanks for joining in, guys. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time right here on The Rundown.